Welcome back to Reclaiming America. Another week, another events, a series of events have happened around the world. And Dan, Greta, and I are going to sit here and try to discuss it and put it in some sort of perspective. Hello, everybody. I'm Bill.
I'm Greta.
And I'm the bald guy, Dan. Come on, Bill, let's get to it. I'm excited today.
Okay.
I am excited.
I think we should start out with the Olympics.
Oh,
The
let's.
Olympics started out doing so well. From their opening ceremony, where
Oh,
they managed to insult 2.5 billion Christians around the country by doing a gay interpretation of or trans interpretation of the Last Supper, and then denying that's what it was.
but then admitting that it was.
Well, that would depend on which day you're listening to who it
Well, if you
was.
apologize for doing it, you're kind of admitting that you was.
He apologized for people misinterpreting what happened.
Well, the fact that one of the participants in it admitted that it was supposed to represent the last summer might have something to do with it, too. Um, oh, you didn't know that one, did you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so I did not watch it live. I have seen it since. And I just shook my head. Like, apparently Christianity is a fair game. I'm waiting for the one where they depict Mohammed in drag.
Got money on that one.
Or perhaps, I don't know, Hindu, whatever,
Oh, Confucius.
Confucius, Buddha, Judaism, whatever one you want to pick. Funny how none of them get.
Got to remember now, put this in perspective. The Last Supper was a Jewish operation.
Careful, Bill.
It was celebrating a Jewish festival,
Yes, it was.
and it was done by Jewish people.
Yep.
So let's
You're
put
not
that in
wrong.
terms.
You're
It
not
was a
wrong.
Jewish Christian insult in one swap. They got both groups.
I just, you know, the thing that kind of really bugs me about it is what does the Olympics always say? Politics is not part of the games. And it's always been a fraud. We've all known that for our entire lifetimes. But they still go around claiming it. This is not nothing political. We don't want anything political. Yet they chose to deliberately make it political. And anyone who says they didn't know what they were doing is a fool.
Or a liar.
Or a liar, fair enough. But I mean, I'm just like picturing them sitting in this room going, what are we going to do for the opening ceremony? I know. Let's send one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse down the Seine, and let's piss off every Christian we possibly can. Because that's going to bring in viewers. The logic is just
I
mind blowing.
understand. Actually lost 22 of the sponsors.
Yeah, I've heard a couple have pulled out, but what I haven't seen is the ratings. I am not a big Olympics person. I will watch the rowing because I'm a former rower, and I'll watch I like the broad jump, long jump, whatever you want to call it, and a few of the track and fields. I could care less about gymnastics. That's not even a sport to me. I'm sorry, but anything where some guy sitting in a judge's stand can go, yeah, that's a 9.4, but that one's a 9.3, and oh, by the way, my country's athlete, that was a 9.8. Come on. It's completely subjective and political. Um, but although I do admire their abilities. But like that, swimming, I'll watch occasionally. I just don't watch it. So I can't say I'm boycotting it because I wouldn't be watching it anyway.
But your issues there, first of all, what I love is what you said at the beginning. It's non-political meeting of all athletes. Yet the Russians were banned
Yeah, I know.
in another country. Yet the Russian athletes were allowed to participate as individuals, not from representing a country.
Yep. Which they did in the prior Olympics, by the way.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's. And I actually think that's an appropriate action because it's not fair to take it out on the athletes. They dedicate their lives and literally hundreds of hours a month to training. It's not fair to them because they have no control over what Putin does. But yeah, to scream, oh, it's not political, and then do everything you can to interject politics to it is disingenuous at best.
You know what I didn't realize when I did some research on this before coming here, because I knew you would do something. Uh, I did research on the fact that athletes get paid for medals.
Yes.
And and if you look at the numbers, if you're from Singapore and you manage to get a gold medal, it's worth about $350,000.
Okay.
From the American viewpoint, it's $38,000 for gold. I think it's 20 for for silver, and 13 for bronze. If you're from Australia, they're only starting at $13,000, and everybody else is somewhere in between.
I'm not sure on those numbers, Bill, and I'll tell you why. Because the women's rowing eight. Now I'm going back. When was Athens? 2012, I think was Athens.
I don't
I don't
remember.
I
know.
thought,
Whatever. No, London. I'm sorry, London. London's the one I'm thinking of. I think it was 2012. But whatever year it was, the women's eight, the rowing eight, who took the gold in that one, they ended up coming away at about a quarter mil each. So it's not. It may be what you're referring to is what the U.S. Olympic Committee pays them, but don't forget
That's
they're all.
we're not talking endorsements and
Yeah,
whatever
they
else.
also get sponsored. So it's they make a good amount of money. Honestly, I don't have a problem with that. They deserve it.
They earn it.
They earn it.
They earn it. We're not arguing there. Did you? I would also like to talk about the French and the river. And they couldn't do the triathlon and couldn't do the triathlon and they couldn't do the triathlon because the water was filled with E. coli that was 20 times higher than acceptable numbers. And
And the fact that they've banned swimming in the Seine for something like 100 years, and now all of a sudden it's safe.
and you had some of the protesters upriver, hey, doing something in the water to try to make it worse. I'll put it that way because it is a good joke. And yet then they got down to yesterday and suddenly everything was fine. And they let them do it.
Well, time will tell if that was the right thing to do or not. Well, if the,
The best one I heard was from one of our triathlon guys from Montana, I think he was. He got up there and said, "Well, I've been preparing for this. So for the last X number of days or weeks, I don't wash my hands after I go to the bathroom and things like that because I'm preparing for this
I'm
infestation."
not sure how that helps, but okay.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I'm not going to comment on that because I just don't see it. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, if any triathlete, and where we're located, there's a half tri every fall, and they swim in the ocean into the bay, which is full of crap, literally. Not to mention enough gasoline from the boats that go in and out to choke a battleship. They're always taking a risk. So, should they be in the Seine? I don't know about that, but they could have chosen somewhere else. Just because it's in Paris doesn't mean they couldn't have gone to another part of France.
I agree. And from what was reported, they spent $1.5 billion trying to clean up the
Yeah,
river.
why didn't they just say no? Instead of there, we're going to hold the triathlon in Tahiti, which is where they're holding the surfing competition.
right,
Hello, I mean, just
Then you had issues with lack of air and cardboard boxes.
oh,
oh
that's been going on for a couple of Olympics, the cardboard box beds.
yeah. It's yeah. Again, when I was younger, I loved the Olympics. I used to watch them all the time. Other than rowing, I haven't really watched the Olympics since the '90s. It just
The other problem that NBC has and related stations is it's basically over before they go on prime time at night
oh
to
yeah.
show third. So all you got to do is turn into any one of 1,000 stations, get the results, and then decide if you want to see anything or not.
Or you can watch them live because they're streaming them on Peacock and all. Because I have Peacock, so it's front and center the minute you log in Peacock at any point. This event's on live, boom, and all that. But that's always been the case. I mean, like 1980, the Lake Placid Olympics, I knew who had won the game before they televised it because it had gotten out. Because I was in Albany at the time. So Lake Placid's, 2 hours from it. Word got out. We knew that we had beaten the Russians before they even showed the game.
Well,
So
I would doubt that you could keep that under wraps for any reason.
what's that?
I doubt you could keep that under
They
wraps ever.
tried. I mean, I think was it ABC back then? Jim McKay, right?
I think you need to pull an Eisenhower with the invasion of Normandy, where he called all the press and fully briefed them, and then turned around and said, "Now you're into top secret information. If one of you leaks it before it happens, you're a traitor, and I'll have you shot."
Good for him. I don't know that TV execs can have people shot, although I'm sure they've tried. like, I don't know, former presidents. But I digress.
One more thing before we leave the
Uh
Olympics.
oh. Here we go.
Think we need to address the boxing issue.
Oh, let's, Bill. Go ahead.
You know, I have to tell you that I don't think it's a real issue.
Oh, really? Okay. Go
I
ahead.
really think the Olympics blew it.
How did they
I
blow it?
mean, you have at least two people now that have been declared biologically men, and they're competing in a women's division. And one person took out this boxer in 46 seconds, who stood up and said, "I'm not doing this anymore."
Who
40 seconds.
declared that person to be a man?
The Olympic Committee.
No, they didn't.
Really did.
No, they didn't.
Okay, who did?
The World Boxing in one test in 2023 did.
They retested and they found the same
Now,
answer.
she is a biological woman and always has been. She has an extra chromosome. She has a Y chromosome, but she is female. Now, people don't want to talk about that. What they're running around saying is she's trans. It's all over the internet that she's a trans woman. She is not a trans woman. She is biologically female.
The next one.
That type scenario. That's just coming out. But she is not. Everybody, including J.K. Rowling, who I've been having a little fun with on X, is running around saying it's a trans woman. It is not a trans woman. The one thing that they keep citing over and over is one test. She's had multiple other tests and passed them. She competed in the Tokyo Olympics in 2020 and lost. Did you know that?
No.
Why not? I'm not saying as an insult to you, but you notice how...
She probably fought men's division.
No, she didn't. She fought in the women's division and lost. Funny how you didn't know that. And I'm not knocking you, Bill. This is my point. This information is not getting out there. She has a 9-5 record in that type of fighting. I wouldn't call that demolishing her opposition and devastating them at all. They're arguing that she's bigger because she's taller. Did you ever hear of a guy named Mike Tyson?
Or a woman named Serena Williams.
Well, no, let's stick to boxing. Do you know who Mike Tyson is?
Might have heard of
Do you know
him
how
once
tall
or
he is? He's 5'10". I actually have seen him fight. He's smaller than me. I seem to recall him beating the crap out of a bunch of guys who were 6'4". Height is irrelevant. Weight matters. And she's in the appropriate weight class. The Italian woman who she was fighting is in the same weight class. This is the biggest fraud that's being perpetuated. And it's not fair.
Same thing about the Singapore lady.
I do not know about that one. So I am not going to comment on that because that could be a completely different scenario. The one I have thoroughly researched is this one. And it is not fair what is being done to that woman. Okay? It is not.
But this could be 2 weeks in a row. You might be right. This could ruin my entire day.
I mean, come on. And it's the women's groups that are calling her out. They're calling her horrific names. And I'm sitting there going, this is your sister. And you're trashing this poor woman, calling her a man because of how she looks?
Wait a
Really?
minute. Why don't we ask the woman on with us to see what she thinks?
Go ahead.
You got it. About this particular issue.
The World Boxing Commission, whatever you call them, the Olympic Commission, they all decided to set certain standards for whether you're male, female, your hormones, whatever, and they did that. Okay? And she failed,
Now, actually, she
Well-
passed because she was allowed to fight.
but she was allowed to fight.
So she did pass. Now, here's another thought I'll throw out there, and I'm saying this as someone who is a trainer, has been a strength and conditioning coach, and competed in powerlifting. If you want to make an argument with me that she's might be juicing, using a little tea,
Thank you.
I will have no debate with you because I actually,
But that was about to be my point.
that's a valid point.
Failed before many times.
Right.
Then passed, and then failed, and then passed.
That's a
See,
sign of testosterone use.
Doesn't that sound like the East Berlin?
Yes. So
Yeah.
that's a legitimate beef. I have no qualms about making that argument. Can we say it's factually the case? No, we cannot. but you rarely can, right? Testing is a joke when it comes to testosterone and HGH, especially HGH. And looking at her and observing her, let's just say I thoroughly believe she's female, and you would not have to twist my arm to convince me that she's juicing. That's a fair argument. But this whole argument that it's a trans man, no, it's not. And I think it's disingenuous at best, and frankly, criminal to watch the women's groups destroying her. And even her opponent came out today and said, I was wrong. In a matter of speaking, I'm
What
paraphrasing.
researching, the Singapore person has the same XXY issue.
And I can't argue, I would take your word for it, Bill. I have not done any
Well,
research on
I'm
that.
doing quick research online, so grabbing what I can find out.
And again, you want to have a debate about that situation, okay. You know, again, that's not trans though. The argument they're making is it's trans. And they're trying to paint everyone as supporting trans or against trans, depending on which position you have. It is not fair to this woman. You want to argue she's juicing? Fine, I'll go along with that. But it just goes to show you that, again, to go back to our original point, this is all political. It's all political agenda, and it's wrong. And I think it does a disservice to women for them to be doing this.
Well, I'm not going to argue this with you because you may actually be
Because
right this time.
I've been on a roll lately, and you know it.
2 out of 3 or 2 out of
By the way, I'm still on record. Kamala will be president by the 19th. We got, what, a couple of weeks yet. So anyway, on that note, guess what? Why don't we go to break a little early? Because I think we've put a bow on the Olympics, haven't we?
I think we have.
And we'll come back and we'll get into some other stuff. Sound good?
Sounds
Sounds
good.
good.
Take us away, Bill.
All right, everybody, stay tuned for Reclaiming America as Greta, Dan, and I come back and discuss other issues that just bothering the rest of the world. When more solutions are with them. Hang in there.
Welcome back to Reclaiming America. I'm Greta. I'm here with Dan and Bill, my co-host, and we're here to discuss the big things of the day and explain them to you.
Explain it to me, Lucy.
Oh, okay.
Explain. I
So
think
what's going to stop Vice President Harris from destroying and running off her campaign staff like she did her vice president?
Oh, good one. Let's go
well,
there.
she's got 330 people to go through.
Not on staff, she don't.
Actually, she will if she keeps putting them out there.
Mm.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's been what, almost 2 weeks now since they announced, and
It's Sunday.
and the bubble is starting to burst. You know, as I expected, and I know you did, Bill. We were going to see a bump up for her, no question. You know,
It was only a 1% bump. It wasn't.
it wasn't
real-
even a yeah. And that would be expected. It's the same thing. The same thing will happen after the convention. You'll see a bump up. It happens every time. But I think once people start figuring things out, like what Greta's referring to, and I saw this morning Trump campaign's running ads on her now. The ad was not the greatest, to be honest with you. I don't think it was well done, but it was an ad. This is all superfluous to me until you get into September, October. Any polling is not going to be valid. Not that it generally is anyway. I don't think, but I don't think she's going to win.
So is the market worried about recession just because Kamala was ahead of the businessman, or are we really facing both problems? Are we really looking at a big slump in the market and recession?
What do you think, Bill? Before I answer.
I think the market will bounce back. I think it will, because frankly, people are going to invest their money, and right now they're taking their excess out of it. That's normal. What they call adjustments, they cause adjustments and numbers. I think it'll come back when she picks her VP. I think by Tuesday, if I remember hearing
That's
that.
what she said. Yeah.
I think you'll see some bounce. The market will come back. They'll start buying their shares again. I think what'll really change the market is they are talking next month about lowering the interest rate again. And they're indicating that's most likely when it's going to happen.
But they've been saying that for months and not doing
Yeah,
it.
but it's really convenient because you're now a month out of
Well, yeah, I was going
getting
to go
started.
there.
What a coincidence. But again,
Yeah.
all those Democrats who are on the economic councils who swear they don't do anything political.
My take on it is a correction is coming, and it doesn't matter who's president or vice president.
Yeah.
My financial advisor has advised me to pull out of stocks because I was very stock heavy with my retirement plan. He thinks we are way overdue for a massive correction, 20%. It does not matter who's president, in his opinion. And he is really good about avoiding politics in the sense that taking a side one way or the other, blue or red, but he does read into it from the financial perspective, the potential effects. He thinks it's a house of cards waiting to fall, especially the housing market, because
Well,
people.
that's what the biggest issue is.
Yeah.
That is the issue.
He's like housing right now is way overpriced, especially in certain areas like ours, right?
Right.
It's way, I mean, again, I'll refer to my house. My house has doubled and then some in value in 5 years, 6 years. And I've made improvements, but come on, all right? It's something that has to correct at some point, and when it does, it's going to be painful.
I don't think we have much else to say about that except we take a look at Kamala as the new president to be, or trying to be.
Okay, go ahead.
It's interesting that as people have pointed out, about every 4, 5, 6 days, she's had press conferences to answer people. And every time she opens her mouth, she puts it a little bit deeper, foot in there a little bit deeper. But since she's been taking this nomination, she has shut up and disappeared. She'll show up at friendly rallies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speak to friendly people. She's gone out of her way to insult allies like Netanyahu. I mean, she didn't need to go speak to the historically black sorority that was meeting last week when she could have been sitting in her chair as vice president at that session where Netanyahu addressed both houses of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's creating issues. I see today that they are giving her credit for negotiating with the Germans to release that killer, which made this whole deal with this 7-country deal to get back the 3 or 4 people we got back. But she's getting credit for convincing the German chancellor, who, quote, said he did it for her, end quote.
It's what I see it as is they're just doing the 2020 campaign that they did with Biden, stuffing them in a basement, and because that is their best move, right? The worst thing they can do is put her out there. So they'll stuff her in the basement.
That September 10th debate.
Again, I'll believe it happens when I see it, first of all. Trump will eat her alive.
Except they're going to be on ABC, and I got a feeling they won't let that happen.
But again, anyone making that argument, I refer back to the one with Biden. They were trying to protect Biden. How'd that work out for him? At least Biden doesn't know where he is. He said some really made some bad gaffes, but that's age. Her case, it's not age, it's intelligence. I'm trying to be nice here. And Trump will eat her alive. And of course, I think they're counting on it, because what are they going to come back with? Oh, he's beating up on a woman and he's beating up on a black woman. They're going to play that race card immediately. That's what they're counting on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work this time.
Oh,
I don't know.
Bill, go on.
They're rolling out the traditional Democratic stance, reference abortion.
Oh, yeah.
And abortion is not in the top 3 or 4 or 5 things on people's mind anymore.
But there is a huge swath of women that are saying, we're going to get behind her and vote for her because she's a woman. They are all over the place.
And that same swath was never going to vote for Trump anyway.
But they're convincing some of the ones that might have to go that way.
Maybe.
Not maybe. You can actually see it happening. I mean, I've seen middle of the road people say, "Oh, it's a woman. I got to vote for her." We got to stand by, the sisterhood, the same sisterhood that's demolishing this poor Olympic
Well,
box.
by the same token, that you'd expect the African American community to be pulling all stops to fall behind her. I don't see that happening either.
They're trying, some of them. That's interesting how polarizing it's become. there doesn't seem to be a middle ground in the African American community on this. The ones that love her, but the ones that don't, oh my God, that some of the videos and shows I'm seeing,
But it's interesting because it almost splits by gender.
not almost, it does. I mean,
Well,
it's still like 90 something percent females are voting for her. The men
Right.
are less than 50, the last I saw. So what happens with that? I mean, if it splits that way during the general election, to me, Trump's guaranteed a victory.
Yeah, because he's only needs to pick up an extra 3 to 4%.
And they're
From
talking
that.
8 to 10 he might get.
He only needs 3 to 4.
Although they said the same thing was going to happen in 20 and it didn't. So what people say in polls, and we've talked about this before, or on the street, versus what they actually do in the voting booths is two entirely different things.
Yeah, but people also need to, we're still too far out to make any
Yes,
judgments.
I agree. But do you
A lot
think,
happens now in November 5th.
but as let me shift the conversation, as we're talking about Kamala now, we don't know her VP candidate. In the next few days, she's going to announce.
Well, we know who's not.
Go ahead.
Cooper dropped out. So did the woman out of Michigan.
Whitmer.
She's dropped
Whitmer
out.
dropped.
Gretchen's dropped out too.
Which actually, that one
It's
surprised
down-
me. Whitmer's dropping out surprised me.
They're basically down to the governors of Illinois and Pennsylvania.
And the senator from Arizona.
And Kelly from
Yeah. Is it Arizona?
Arizona.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the governor of Pennsylvania is going to be who it is. They need that state more than any of the others.
Yeah, but he's also the side of that becomes an issue is they also need the north middle of the country, Michigan and whatever else. And he comes in, unfortunately, Jewish, and unfortunately, that could be with a heavy Arabic group up there. That could be a difference maker up there. And I'm not saying it should be.
No, but
He
your
made it
point
clear.
is valid, though. But again, you're going to see issues in some state with all three of the potential candidates that are left. So,
And the other thing you've got running is Obama wants Kelly.
yeah, well, I don't think he wanted Harris. So,
If you heard that speech that, someone replayed it the other day about him needing a third term and what he said.
well, he just had it. You mean a fourth term?
What he said was, if I could sit in my basement in sweats and make decisions and call them into people and tell them what to do, and because we had somebody there that would listen to everything I wanted, I would love a third term that way. I just don't have to get dressed and go to all these places. Sound familiar?
Well, it's what they've been doing for the last 4 years. Come on. And they're just looking to extend it. It, when it comes down to that VP candidate, I do think it's going to matter. They, of all of the states that they need to win, which Michigan, Arizona, North Carolina, all the the so-called purplish states, Pennsylvania is the key. It really is. And I think that's who they're going to grab simply for that. He's pretty popular in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but you know what? As long as they keep pushing the fracking issue and her statements from fracking, you're going to put Pennsylvania back in play.
I think it's in play anyway. But
Yeah, but it'd be more in play than it would be assuming that you always assume that the candidate delivers his own state.
which, by the way, that's not the
But that's the
VP.
assumption.
The VP doesn't really do much for their own state. If you go and look at it, I was actually watching somebody had done an analysis on it over the last 40 years of elections. So going back into
And elections.
Reagan's first term, right? Looking at the VP candidates and the bump they delivered within their state to the presidential candidate, and they came in with about 0.4% of a bump. That's it. Which, now, to be fair, in some states, that's all you need, right? But in other states, it's irrelevant. So
Now, wait a minute. Let us look at the fact that Reagan wouldn't have gotten his 49 states, might have only gotten 48 of them.
again, it's
If it wasn't for the
irrelevant,
VP
right?
candidate.
Right. Yeah, I don't think Bush delivered him anything.
Texas wouldn't have went without him. The other 48 states that have been there.
Okay. But the thing is, with the Electoral College, the Democrats Pennsylvania is an absolute must. They can lose Michigan, they can lose Arizona, they need combinations, but they cannot win without Pennsylvania. They cannot win. The math will not add up. They could take every other state that they of the swing states. If they don't get Pennsylvania, they don't have enough in the electoral college. That's why I think
Yeah,
it's going to be him.
there is a way Trump can win without Pennsylvania.
There is. The other way, it does not work. So it's, and again, we have to consider, we talked a few weeks ago about, is New York in play? New York does not like Harris. They really don't like her. I still think New York is a possibility. Do I think, would I bet my mortgage on it? No. But I do think there's a legitimate chance. 5, 10, 15, 20%.
New York might make a difference. New York might make a difference when we start doing the thing that Hillary complained about. I won the popular vote.
That's fair too.
I think they will deliver enough that whether Trump will get the popular vote, hopefully he gets the electoral vote also. But I think New York could be the swing on that one.
If Trump takes any one of the quote unquote blue wall, any of them,
He wins.
he wins. Even like places like Vermont and Delaware, that's small. They have to have them in the blue column or they cannot win. And, again, polling is polling at this point. But even with Harris's bump, a lot of those states are in play. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And you'll see another bump in a couple of weeks when they have the thing and they anoint their candidate, put the crown on her because you can't say she was elected. So it'll be interesting to see.
I got to tell you something. I think we're overplaying that hand.
Really? Why so?
I just, there's a reality there. For example, if something happened to Trump tomorrow, Vance would become the presumptive person, and the Republicans would do the same thing. So I think that is being overplayed. They need to go into stay with policy and issues you can win with, and not be playing up the fact that she's being anointed.
I'm not sure that Dan is referring to Republicans.
No, I'm talking about Democrats. Yeah.
He's talking about displaced, disgruntled.
Yeah, but it's the Republicans singing that song,
Yeah.
and I think they're wasting their time.
Mm.
I think they should be better served going into policy differences, other issues that need to be played, because you're not going to affect what's changing there. And like I said, had the similar thing happen to Trump, Vance would be the standard bearer. That's a reality.
I don't disagree with you, Bill. And we've talked about this before. I think the Republicans need to run on issues. But like Trump's thing today, he was hitting on the border. That's a legitimate issue. And a few other things. The way they did it, I was like, this is weak. It wasn't the best marketing of it. But he was hitting the bullet points. Well, not he, the campaign was hitting the bullet points on what they're going to go after her on, which is the border number one. Because they're out there saying she's not the border czar when they literally, I don't know if you saw the TikTok that went around where the guy has Biden, the people from NBC News, CNN, and all of them calling her the border czar, and juxtapositioning it with her claiming she was never or the one saying that she was never it. That's where the Republicans need to stick to. I will tell you right now, I'll give you the winning slogan. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? It worked in 1980. Run on it. That's all the Republicans need to do.
I really think the Republicans need to run on what's going on in the world, what's happening in the world, what's happening in the country, and get away from this. Though I will give Vance a lot of credit for when CNN tried to nail him at the border with, don't you think, basically Trump made a racist statement over, is she Indian or is she black and which one is she this week? And his answer was probably classic and it was perfect. He came back and said, something, what Trump did was call her out on her flip-flopping. She is one day this, she's one day that. She's pro fracking, she's anti-fracking. Mm-hmm. She's anti-gun, now she's going to allow certain guns. They're calling her out on her stands. And he also says she was born one way, she goes into the South and she starts with a Southern accent. Who does that remind you of?
That was good. I saw those videos where they did that.
My girlfriend,
Yeah, how's
yeah.
that not? But well, anyway, yeah. To me, the Indian versus black. You're right with the way Trump's approaching it. Right, he's just calling her out on the flip flopping. Of course, they're painting it as racist. There, from the Democratic side or the middle or that, whether she's black or Indian is irrelevant. She's a person of color, right? So they can just make that argument. Why they are making a fight about it? Forget the Republicans. The Democrats are fighting about it. No, she's black. No, she's Indian. I've seen them doing it, and I'm sitting here going, "Why are you fighting over that? You're playing right into the Republicans' card doing that." Either way, she's a person of color. Just run with it. She's a person of color. But again, it goes back to identity politics has become so ingrained in the U.S. right now, everywhere, that even that's become an issue within the Democratic Party because they're worried about losing the black vote, so they're willing to piss off the Indian vote.
Right.
You know, I don't know where the numbers fall with all that. I got to believe there's more blacks than Indians, but I don't know. And that's not to slight either one, by the way. I know somebody will clip that and say I am. But I'm looking at it from a demographic perspective. They have to piss off one or the other. I guess in their mind it's better to piss off the Indian. I don't know.
They're not just pissing off the Indian vote, though, are they? They've pushed away the Asian vote.
It comes into play on that. You're right.
Just saying, they have to make a choice, just like Pennsylvania or Arizona, right?
Yep.
Pennsylvania or Michigan.
Hard choice between Mark Kelly and Shapiro. You have to make a hard choice, and either choice you make has negative consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You think about it,
Yep.
okay? Long range negative consequences. So you're making a choice, and they've put their money down, and the roulette wheel is about to spin.
Well, they basically painted themselves into a corner with it all.
Yes,
Across the board on every issue. They have gone hard down on certain things and they can't get out of it. And long term, they're gonna lose a lot. But in their mind, I think we just got to get 2024. We'll worry about 28 or 26 or 32, or we'll worry about them then, because they'll find some other thing that they can drum up to make it an issue. Because that's what they've done. But it'll be interesting once the election's over. Would be curious to see how all the demographic breaks down as far as the electorate goes. You're gonna see a lot of white liberal women voting for Harris. I can guarantee you that. The rest of it, I think, is a crapshoot.
Well, white liberal women are going to vote against Trump no matter who was sitting there. Mickey Mouse could be running, and they would get their vote.
But what if they let the Free Palestine group steal all the oxygen? That's what I want to know. River to the sea, that whole bit. Why would they just sit there and let them steal that oxygen? For Michigan? I don't think so.
I don't know if it's going to play enough in Michigan to make it worthwhile. Minnesota, yeah. By the way, Minnesota's in play. Looking at the polling, it's within 5 the last I saw. So, yeah, they got to play to that. Again, though, are you okay? We're going to support River to the Sea. We're pissing off the Jewish vote, which is a cornerstone of the Democratic Party. It's 6 of one, half dozen. Somebody's going to go down, and it's going to blow up at some point. The question is, will it be 24 that it happens?
I was talking to some Jewish friends of mine the other day, and what's interesting is they can find a way in their mind to separate Israel from Judaism.
Yep.
Basically they're making it a nationality, if you will, or a country, a Zionist issue, and it does not tie itself to Judaism directly. And, that's a difficult thing to deal with. And I think we're going into the world issue in our final segment, because there's so much going on we need to talk about.
And speaking of which, guess what? It's time to take a break before we do that. So take it away, Bill.
I'm so bright, my mother calls me smart.
Timed it perfectly, my friend.
It's time for us to take a break and bring you back for the final segment of Reclaiming America. Welcome back to our final segment in Reclaiming America. We're moving along very quickly. We need to look at some things that are still going on in the world. I think we need to go international for a few minutes.
Let's.
if you haven't noticed, there's been some trouble in the Middle East lately,
Really?
and it's going to be kind of exacerbated last couple of days ago when Israel did some targeted removal of people's bodies from their brains. And
Golf clap for Israel, by the way.
the Iranians have threatened dire consequences, and they're going to have major retaliation. Israel, interestingly enough, those only claimed one of the two attacks were theirs, which is interesting. Uh, and of course, the United States has said we're 100% behind Israel. Which, if I was Israel,
I'd be worried. Yeah.
I would put my back up against the wall, so at least one side is protected.
Again, I always have to put the caveat out there. I'm very biased on this. I'm very pro-Israel. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. I say it every time we talk about it. My friends' parents were Holocaust survivors, so I am completely blinded by that, and I freely admit it. But kudos to Israel for taking that guy out. And if Iran wants to start something, good luck to them, because every time they've tried, they get their ass handed to them. That said, if they do and it escalates, then we got a problem because who's running our country to do anything about it?
Jill,
At this point, probably. Um,
and she's not happy now because she's being forced out
oh, she's
at the end of the year. Some of us think it's going to be earlier, but I do believe it's the end of the year.
well, she'll get a cabinet position if Harris wins. So at least that's my take on it. But you look at the whole Middle East situation, and it's a powder keg. It has been for many many years. But
Okay.
I think at this point it's at the highest risk it's ever been. At least other than the active wars in 47, 73, and so on. Um,
Seven.
yeah, it's going to blow up at some point. I firmly believe that. I hope it doesn't, but I think it will. The only way that's going to stop is if Trump gets in, because he will stop it. But again, it's while he's in. That doesn't mean 28 is not going to come right back, and I think it will. But it'll be. I could see it blowing up before the election too.
Yeah, I would think that. Well, I could see Netanyahu pushing that issue because he's friendly with Trump
Hmm.
and allowing that to go down that way to help Trump in the election. Though you have people like Germany that will come along because they don't want Trump back.
Right.
The French don't want Trump
Well,
back.
no, because he's going to pull. He's going to make NATO have to pay their fair share.
Yeah, and so they're going to do whatever they can do to keep Democrats in the office, not necessarily the two of them there, but they just want Democrats in the office because they know they can be scot-free to do what they want to do internationally.
Yeah,
And that's a problem.
yeah, it is, and unfortunately, it's going to put millions of lives at stake, and not just American. You know, it's
No,
like I said, it's a powder keg, and then you got to look at Ukraine and Russia. I was watching some stuff on that in the last couple of weeks. Like they were,
China, Taiwan, South Korea,
but
North Korea, pick one.
all of them. But Russia's getting their ass handed to them. They just had a major attack they tried last week, like as big an armor attack as they've been able to do since the beginning of the war, and Ukraine's dismantled it. I mean, there actually is video online of them doing it. Like main battle tanks from the 50s is what they're using. They're down to, like, you would know more about this than anyone, Bill, because you were involved in armor, but they had one tank in their troop with a bunch of, uh,
Infantry.
BTRs, is that what it was? I think the term was BTRs.
Yeah, you mean the infantry
The infantry
carrying
carrier, I think they referred to them as BTR,
carriers,
something
troop
like
carriers?
that. But so there was the armor force was broken into separate things, but it was one tank instead of four or five.
But they made a mech infantry operation, and I have to tell you from my own experiences, we're not that bright when it comes to them too. I mean, I've been in operations where they've taken a tank battalion, broke the battalion to, and each brigade got a company. The brigade broke the company, the platoons to the battalions. The battalions broke the platoon down to the companies. And I've been sitting there in one exercise I loved. The exercise said there's 72 Russian tanks coming over the hill. Go out and engage them. And I looked around, and it was myself and one other TC.
Good luck to that. Good to you.
Yeah. I said, really? And we drove up the hill and drove around, and we won. That was the best part. We came back victorious.
But I'm cracking up about that. But you looked at, like this attack, they're using 1950s era equipment. Russia's on their last legs with this. They sent in something like 70 units, armored units, whatever they wanted to call them, and lost more than half of them. The manpower was somewhere around 40% casualties, and they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Ukraine is holding their own. They don't have to win offensively. They just got to hold where they are. At some point, Russia's done. What happens then? Does he then go nuclear?
And that was my next thought, because he's losing too much face. He has to do
He's
something.
going to have to do something. And again, it goes back to the current situation where you've got, a pile of oatmeal running the White House, or, God forbid, the cackling hen gets in. And what's going to happen then? I mean, Putin calls her up. I just nuked Ukraine. She's, I mean, come on. Where do we
I
end up?
haven't been there because I haven't been to Europe, so that's okay.
That's. I mean, it scares me, to be honest with you, where we're going to end up. It's scary. And again, we're just on those. You mentioned earlier, Korea's a very big possibility something could blow up there, and
South
Taiwan.
Korea, Japan, you got a three-way there. You've got Taiwan and China. That you've even got issues with Hong Kong. You're supposed to be an independent under Chinese control, and they keep squeezing that thing a little bit tighter and tighter every chance they can get.
Shocking, no? I said it when it actually happened. What was it, 98? I think they did that. I said, yeah, give it enough time. It'll be no different than Beijing. But
The good news is, as soon as the attack occurred, we sent more warships to the Middle East.
it's a show of force. But is that force going to do anything? Are they? Well, let me rephrase that. Are they going to be allowed to do anything?
Well, the bigger question is, what's the rules of engagement?
Probably
You
the
know-
same as they were for the Secret Service sniper. We can't do
And that's
anything.
exactly where I'm going.
Yep.
Because no one has asked that question publicly.
Mhm.
What were the rules of engagement for those Secret Service agents? Did they have to, I'm hearing they had to be fired first, then they could respond.
That's virtually been confirmed that was the policy because it was in writing, and I've seen it where they actually had it. Again, you got to take everything you see online with a grain of salt, but this looked pretty official that the policy is you cannot fire until somebody shoots first, which is an inane policy. They actually have video now of some guy running across the roof at the shooter minutes beforehand.
They also have videos of the shooter running across the roof,
Yes, I
and it was taken by one of the guys that was shot. They
mean,
finally got to his phone.
I mean, Hollywood could not write up better fiction than this. It is mind blowing.
What scares me, I want you to think of this now. You've got Trump, you have Vance, you have Harris, you have Biden, you have this new vice presidential candidate, and now you got RFK, all getting full details. They don't have enough people to do this correctly. And
That's a fair point.
Now you're talking about our Sleepy Joe. Jill evidently wants to go visit Europe before she finishes because he's planning a farewell tour.
Well, and our dollar too. Yeah.
Of course. And, he's going to fly around Europe and wherever else to show everybody what a great job he's done. Based on that, he probably isn't going to go too far. He'll be right home. But the problem is the Secret Service is overextended now. And now you're going to put him on a tour outside the country. That's going to triple, quadruple the manpower he would need to do something in this country.
Yeah, I mean, their priority would be Biden Harris simply because they're in office. So, and it would be if it was Trump Vance in office, they would be the priority. But
I would think the priority might be Trump at least number 2 based on what's happened.
now,
They
no
can't
way.
let it happen again.
Oh, they'll let it happen again, Bill. Come on, they would love it. Who are you
I
kidding?
just like it. They cannot let it happen again. Because what bothers me, this number 2 that they promoted to be in charge of the Secret Service, he was in charge of the actions out there.
I was gonna say he's no better. Yeah,
you know, what are you doing? The guy who was in charge of approving all this stuff, because the woman already said she wasn't in charge of approving anything, it wasn't her. That falls down to him. And yet they put him in charge.
Why are you
And
surprised? Why are you even remotely surprised by that?
you know what the solution is? And I really, and I've seen some of them on the line. There's some people now pushing that if Trump wins, Bongino takes over the Secret Service. And I would support that in a
I
Philadelphia
don't for
minute.
1 second think that'll happen. He's making way too much money doing his show.
He would put it
You
down.
think he would?
I'm sure he would.
I don't know. I mean,
I think he would
I'm all
clean up.
for it. Don't get me wrong. I think he should be the one, right? I would be shocked. Just like the people were saying Tucker should be the VP candidate and Tucker should do this. Tucker's not walking away from literally tens of millions of dollars a year. Ain't happening.
Question always becomes, how much money do you need? If you've already got $1 billion in the bank, do you need $1.5 billion? Or can you then
Those
say,
guys tend to want
don't
more.
waste
Yeah.
$200,000 and suffer?
I think a little bit of wishful thinking on your part, my friend. Bongino's making money hand over fist. I don't think Trump's the exception, not the rule. They're not going to walk away from that much money. They're just not. I don't for a second believe it. I hope he does. Don't get me wrong. I hope to God he does. But
I would not be half surprised to see Musk in the cabinet at some level. And he's going to have to give up what he's doing. Again, how many $1 billion do you need?
Musk is an exception, though. You got to
Every
remember,
rule's
Musk doesn't even own property, right? He rents a house or he lives with friends. Musk is the exception. I just don't see some of these guys doing that. Not, you look at the Bonginos, Tucker Carlson, that level, they're making too much money and they have too much invested in it. Elon's different. Trump is different. I would love to be wrong on that, but I just don't see it. So, on that note, my friends, guess what?
It's time to shut it down.
Must be.
It flew by. But I'm watching the beautiful rain behind you, by the way. For those of us
It's
watching the
really
video, it looks gorgeous behind you.
Those are Democrats crying over November.
No, that's your tears from me being right all the time. Silenced him. Yes.
Of you being what all the time?
Who called it? Biden was dropping out of the race, Bill?
Uh, you're right once. We'll give you one.
No, you gave me about 3. So, all right, wrap it up, my friend.
You want to close that?
Well, thanks for joining us. There's other places that you can join us.
Just do this above your head. Do this. Because it's right on above their head. There. Go to those places. There. Done.
Okay, they're all up there, and especially TikTok,
Yep.
X. We love those guys. Okay, are we still doing TikTok though? I love X.
I don't know. Ask Bill. He's the one who does TikTok.
Oh my God, anyways, thanks for being with us. We enjoyed it.
Everybody. I can't get off suspension in TikTok.
Oh, that's where the problem is. All right. All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Everybody, we'll see you next week.